if you're considering the move to Florida and you're looking at Tampa and Orlando and you can't decide between both of them, this is the video for you. I'm going to cover the differences and similarities between both and which one's right for you. Let's go. What's up, everyone? My name is Cameron Haas, a realtor here in Orlando, Florida. And this is your first time coming to the channel where you want to learn about living, eating, sleeping in Orlando. Please consider liking, subscribing, and hitting that little bell icon to be notified every time I drop a new video. And I always say this, we always have people from around the world reaching out to us when they make the move to Orlando. And if that's you and you need help, call, text, email, whatever you have to do, we have your back when moving to Orlando, Florida. So in this video, we're going to be talking about the similarities and differences between living in Orlando and living in Tampa, and what I've found when I initially came here, and then obviously being here, and really what I consider the difference between the both. So getting into it, I think one of the first things that's most obvious is, having a beach close by. So in Orlando, you're kind of like roughly the same distance, depending what part of the city you're living in, between Daytona and Clearwater, right? But you're not gonna have a beach that's right there for you to access, and that's like, it's like the biggest difference that I've noticed. So obviously in Tampa, like, you're gonna be living closer to the beach, so that's important to you. That really could be a big difference between the two. If you're like me and I could care less about the beach, like, it's nice to do every now and then Orlando is definitely going to take the position, depending on all the other ones we're about to cover here. But it's definitely one of the first ones that I noticed. That's a difference between those two places, depending on what's important to you. All right, this next difference I found is professional sports teams. Okay, so where I grew up in New York, football and hockey was life. I mean, yeah, I know a lot of people love baseball and basketball, but it just wasn't for me. But if you're, if you at that difference, right, in Orlando, you're going to have the Magic for NBA, and then they also have a professional soccer team as well. If that's for you, then that's a really cool thing that Orlando has for you to access. But obviously when it comes to Tampa, you got the Buccaneers and the Lightning if you're into football and hockey, which for me is great. Obviously my wife is a Disney nut, and we chose Orlando, and I do love Orlando. I think it was the best decision for our family overall. But that's, it's a difference. Like, depending if sports are life for you, and that's a huge part of, like, one reason you're like, hey, like, I'm coming from this place and I'm coming out here, but I still want to be able to watch my team when they come play, then that can be a decision. Mind you, like, Tampa's like what, an hour and a half from Orlando to get to like the stadiums and the arenas and stuff like that, which isn't, for me, it's not bad. Like, if I'm like, I'm not a season ticket holder. I don't do that kind of thing. If you are, then that could be a part to play in where you want between those two cities. All right, this next one is crime rating. So this one's a loose subject, but niche.com, they take crime data between both cities overall, every suburb, the whole counties that they live in, and they add that data together. Overall, Tampa has a better crime rating. Now, I have a lot of things on that. So Orlando, just where it's located, I feel a lot of that rating is based on like neighboring counties. It's one of those things where Orlando has always been the vacation spot. And this is just my opinion. This is how I look at it. But as it's growing, and since I've been here and watching it grow and expand, it's becoming more and more a place that people want to live and raise families. And I think that's a lot better. Not to mention, like, most neighborhoods across multiple price ranges have amazing ratings. It's just overall they're pulling those numbers, but you have to look at, like, there's a lot of parts of Orlando that are out there. So if it's kind of like an annoying figure, but it is something that when you do your initial research, that might come up to you and something that you see. And Tampa overall has a better rating, but that being said, like, it's same concept. If you choose the wrong neighborhood, you're gonna have a bad time. It's like saying you live in the hills of LA, right? Or like Manhattan, like a high rise in New York City. Like, obviously, like, there's areas that are good and there's areas that are bad. But the overall rating, yes, Tampa does seem to have an overall lower crime rating, but it doesn't mean that Orlando's bad. But it is something that you'll notice when you do your research, I think, just like we did when we were making the move out here. All right, the next biggest difference I found between both places, it's kind of a difference, also a similarity, is like theme parks, right? And things to do. So overall, they both have, like, one will have more, a little bit less than the other. One thing I noticed that if you're like my wife, like a huge Disney nut, obviously Orlando, like it's without question probably going to be on your radar. You're like, no, this is where I'm living because I want to be 28 minutes like we are from the park. and there's gonna be no other option. Obviously, like Orlando has, like, they're about to, they have about to have Peppa Pig Land, like they have Legoland, they have Disney World, and all those parks. Like there's a lot to do here that's heavy theme park, and it's amazing. It's absolutely great. But keep in mind, like Tampa's really, for me, not that far away to still enjoy those things if you wanted to, but they still have like Busch Gardens, right? Which is awesome, really fun. I definitely recommend it. And both places, like they have like their small attractions, plus or minus. Orlando has like I forgot the name of it right now, but it's a weird museum they have here. That's kids absolutely loved it and had an amazing time when they went there because they got to have all these cool things like nail beds and all these like different attractions and stuff. And it was awesome, and something that Orlando just has that unique side to it that I just absolutely love. I mean, geez, there's even a place where you can go experience the Holy Land. They just have a whole replica building. It's absolutely insane. It's awesome. Like I just love Orlando's like weird factor to it, but it's all just awesome and good fun, right? But at Tampa, like they have places like one of my favorite places, like Top Golf, because I love to golf, and Top Golf, it's just a fun place to go on a Friday night. Like I just love that, and it's something that Tampa has is they're going to have more of that style, in my opinion, places to do. But they both have a plus and minus, so something to consider when making the move to Orlando or Tampa. All right, this ended up being a big thing for me when making the move out here. Partially, my wife definitely was really concerned about it. Is if you've never even realized this, is sinkholes, right? Now, I think it is overplayed a little bit, but Tampa and definitely moving towards Orlando is in what's called like Sinkhole Alley. And in Florida, what they have is a lot of the rock underneath the ground is limestone. And over time, as water gets to that limestone, it dissolves. And this is just a base understanding. I'm no geologist. I don't know everything about it, but over time, it breaks down the limestone. You eventually have the ground just sinks below. And you can look it up. There's tons of stories about homes falling in and all this stuff. Like, obviously, people still live here. So don't consider this like a huge, like out of nowhere. But when we were making the move out here, like, that was a huge concern. For my wife, she was like, "Oh my gosh, I don't want to live there." So Tampa, there are definitely high points in certain pockets of it that are definitely like high zones for those sinkholes. And like, there's always terrible stories about homes sinking, all that stuff. But obviously, with weighing in like Disney World and the attractions and like everything that Orlando had to offer, we chose here because, well, one, I think the neighborhoods are awesome here, and they're just doing nothing but expanding, which is awesome. There's always more stuff coming here, and I love that about Orlando. But obviously, competing between the two cities, Tampa definitely seems to be higher like in rankings for relocation cities just because it's more established, I feel like. But Orlando is like, don't discount it. It has a lot to offer, but there can be negatives that maybe just aren't good for your family. But yeah, those sinkholes were a huge issue for us when we came out here. Because when you just come from certain places like that, you just don't even have to think about that. Like even growing up in New York, I don't know. Like, we had some sinkholes because like everywhere has like small instances and pockets of it, but it's not as like big as it is here, just because it's something you deal with, I guess, right? It's not like, maybe not a high concern, but like, you can choose where you live and kind of like that. You can see like there's a sinkhole map and you can look it up and stuff like that to get more information on it. But that's the biggest differences I found between Tampa and Orlando, and some of the similarities. It's always good to decide, when you're making the trip out here, you're thinking about making the move, like which city is best for you, and you're just having a hard time and researching and figuring it out, or you're making the move to Orlando and you're like, this is happening. Reach out to us, call, text, email, whatever you need to do. Our team absolutely loves helping people when they come to make the move, just like most of us did when we did. We love helping you make that decision. So without that, I will see you in the next video.